Yeah.
Well, Jennifer, it's great to see you. Thank you for taking a minute out to talk about the new album and surviving this weird pandemic we went through and everything in
Yeah.
between. Thank
Thanks
you.
for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's begin with that. Let's begin with, before we get into Grit and Grace, I want to know, how did you survive the last 3.5 years? It did quite its thing on the world of musicians. And along with surviving it, how did it change you?
Well, I'm a person that when I'm stressed out, I give myself stuff to do to make myself stressed out about other things. So actually, I made a whole record in the pandemic. Not Grit and Grace. It was our second album called Not a Novelty. And I kept the band going. We rehearsed virtually, so we would send tracks around. Um, and that's how we rehearsed for the entire album. I think we played one or two outdoor gigs. And yeah, it really gave me something else to focus on rather than the all-consuming darkness. But the band overall, I mean, even coming out of the pandemic when work started happening, and right now I'm back doing Broadway, and I haven't had COVID, knock on wood, since June.
Okay. All right.
Um, so it's given me well, let me put it this way. It's easy for a freelance musician to become very dark. You're always waiting for someone else to call you. You're always waiting for, more gigs. It's not really sure you can kind of move up in the level of gigs that you do, but it's either you're working or you're not.
Yeah.
And with my band, it gave me like a sense of purpose and peace and drive that I thought I'd never find again in music. And yeah, that's kind of how I survived. I mean, having something to focus on really helped.
Yeah, for sure. So talk to me about Grit and Grace. How did you artistically construct this new album?
So I looking at the band and looking at kind of who I am in the world of my very small corner of the world of music, I was um I was interested in how I could be a better ally to my other female musicians. My band is entirely dudes, and which is not foreign to me. That has happened a lot throughout my career. So I said, okay, well, I'm just gonna commission women. And for the first time, I actually contributed music as well. I didn't feel like I had much to say prior to this, and even the ideas I did have, I didn't really know how to put on paper. But in the pandemic, I got my master's in jazz and started doing some composition. So it really helped me get to a place where I feel like I could say something of worth. And yeah, I just started reaching out to several people I've known. Miho Hazama, I've known for a while. Nadia Nordhaus, I've known for a long time. Carolina Calvache, I'd met a few years ago, but completely forgot about. And Natalie Cressman, I've known for a long time. The only person I didn't know and I found in the pandemic through social media was Vanessa Perica. And she's phenomenal. She has a brand new album out as well. If anyone, I can't remember the name of it, but it's a great. She's got a big band out there, and big band writers tend to know more what to do with four trombones than people that aren't. But it was once I heard her music, it was a very easy decision to ask her to participate.
So the one thing about this time is that musicians got operated off ideas that have either been lying around or new ideas came about because of what we lived through. Was
Mhm.
this kind of an outgrowth of that notion of having more time to consider what you're doing and how you're doing it?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. There was a big push during the pandemic for more equity. Um, and because I live in that world, I live in the Broadway pit scene, and I've been very fortunate, very lucky to have worked as much as I have. But there were a lot of people, a lot of demographics that weren't getting called, and it's a very insular community. It can be.
Yeah.
Much less here than in other areas that I've been. But it it would always seem that people would hire a more diverse band when the show was dealing with a more diverse topic. But in the pandemic specifically, a few organizations were founded that really brought to light kind of our gray areas, our blind spots, if you will. And many contractors and band leaders, and they wanted to know where their blind spots were. So I was getting contacted all the time. Well, who should I know? And I'm like, okay, well, you should know this person, this person, this person. This person is coming up. Maybe, have them sub on something, or, it was kind of like different levels. But you never want to throw someone who's unprepared into a scene like that, because they'll never work again in that scene if they don't, if they're not prepared. So that was happening. And it kind of made me question, okay, if I am this person that people that move to New York contact and say, how did you survive being female in the business? Or, someone at a college that is dealing with some harassment or just unfair treatment. If I'm going to be that person, I have to be that person in every aspect. I can't just do it like with my words. I have to do it with my actions. And so that really informed just the whole process for the third album.
So as usual, I really enjoyed this album, and I'm curious, what are you hoping the listener gets from this album?
Well, the biggest compliment I've ever received is that they forgot it was all trombone.
Yeah.
Yeah. The trombone it's a silly instrument. What I
Okay.
do for a living, and it's sometimes I just sit around and go, I just blow hot air into metal tubes. That's all I do. My whole it's lips and lungs. That's all. Okay, the brain, yes, a little bit, but and then I look at my colleagues, my sometime colleagues that are in these major orchestras, and that's literally all we do. What we do is kind of dumb, but when you put it together, when you package it up nicely, when you say something musically, creatively, it's valid. And I want to introduce more people to the possibility that this, kind of silly instrument can be a serious contender in terms of like new music, new jazz. Even me, who I'm probably the least experienced improviser in my band, but my husband always said, John Fetchuk, my amazing first husband and only husband, but he's my favorite. Um, he said, if you can play something beautiful, it's valid. And that has been such a game changer for me, who was always afraid to kind of dip my toe into that. I really try and hope, I hope that comes through, is that if this is beautiful, if this is touching you in any way, like, who cares if it's all trombone?
Right. So I guess my other question is this, we talked about the pandemic and how you got through it, and that was obviously a huge crutch for the music industry, but it also has provided strength and new directions coming out of New York, kind of the cauldron, the hot belly of just culture and music. How strong do you see the jazz community right now in December of 2023?
It's been very odd because, man, I do a ton of big band, and this year has been the least big band I think I've played since I moved to New York.
Wow.
So I don't know if people are regrouping, or maybe there's big bands happening that I'm not involved in. I couldn't take every big band gig that came my way this year, but that seems like it's missing. So that could be a byproduct of, yeah, a lot of people weren't making a ton of money for this while, and big band is not it's not cost effective. So I'm wondering if they're just regrouping and next year is going to be, a blowout.
Yeah.
But some of the bands I work with have done stuff, like Darcy James Argue just released another album this year. They got nominated for Grammy. And Remy LaBeouf's album's coming out in March, which we recorded during the pandemic. I actually got COVID during the recording session. I had to overdub my parts a
Oh
couple
no.
weeks later. Yeah. So, stuff is happening. It just doesn't seem like it's happening as much. And to be honest, I don't live in the sort of world that most jazz musicians live in, the smaller groups, the going to smalls all the time, going to the Vanguard all the time. I make most of my money in a Broadway pit, so I'm working when everybody's playing. So when I play with my band, I got to take off work. Make sure it's hard. It's a hard job to do, like the getting of the gigs and convincing people that we have a following and that the music is worthwhile, especially with a name so suggestive as Bonegasm. But I knew what I was doing when I created the band, so I'm kind of like unapologetic. This band, while it brings me great joy, is not going to make or break my career that pays most of my bills at the time,
Yeah.
right at this current moment. So I feel like I'm a little I'm able to do like stuff that maybe people who were concerned more with propriety would not do, like naming a band Bonegasm. I kind of don't care if someone doesn't like it or is offended by it. So I just
Yeah.
say the band is not for you.
Well, but the thing about it is that, you have kind of a creative liberty to do what you want to do. I mean, you genuinely are doing exactly what you want. You don't have anybody glowering and telling you need to do things a certain way. It's all you, and it's all how you want to do it, which is why, you have a new band this time around and all of that. That has to feel good.
Yeah, it is so freeing. And I've because I was in a really dark place when I formed the band, and I formed it for a few reasons. There was like a few reasons. Like Alan Ferber wrote this tune that I fell in love with. It's on our first album. It's called North Rampart. It's on two of his other albums too. But it was the first time I fell in love with a tune and wanted to learn how to improvise on it. And at the same time, these bass trombone players were moving to New York and could improvise. And I was like, oh crap, I missed the boat. My career is over. I missed the boat. Um, and I was talking to Ingrid Jensen about it, and she said, you need something of your own. And she was right. It took me a few years. I mean, that conversation happened probably 3 years before I formed the band. But it was a gig that I was on with my husband for our instrument company, and he had written several arrangements for four trombones. There were four of us playing this instrument, and I was like, "This is exactly what I want. This is going to be the format." And yeah, it's been very thrilling, daunting. Everything rides on me. So, and as a byproduct on my husband, because he's been the producer for the three albums. But it's been so much fun, and he's been such a supporter. He loves watching me get into doing all this because he's been doing it for so long. He's tickled.
So what about live shows? What's coming up for you as we kind of close the year out and enter a new one? What's going on that front?
Yeah, so we've done more this year than we've ever done. It was a very busy year. Next year, I'm not exactly sure what's on tap. I've applied to a lot of jazz festivals. I have got some feelers out in terms of like performances at some schools and stuff. We are definitely going to the Jazz Education Network conference in New Orleans. I'm taking the whole band. Speaking about not cost effective. But yeah, we're going to go down there, especially because the last tune on my album, on Grit and Grace, is about a restaurant in New Orleans.
Yeah.
And I'm hopefully going to take the whole band to that restaurant, Coops on Decatur. It's amazing.
Nice.
And yeah, and I'm going to bring some of the music. I'm doing a trombone recital at a Southern California Trombone Day at Mount SAC. I think it's Mount San Antonio College. And so I'll be doing half of it with kind of an ad hoc Bonegasm, but half of it will be Bonegasm music. And yeah, we're going to see what happens. I mean, there's going to be a few gigs in New York at least, but I'm just trying to see how it shakes out. There's a couple other pots on the stove for me in terms of scheduling. So it does cut into my band scheduling, but I'm hopeful we'll have a great year.
So Grit and Grace is the brand new album. Where can people, the best place to pick it up, learn about these live shows, anything going on in your world, where can they go?
Okay, so I've got a website, jenniferwharton.com. That's Wharton spelled like Wharton School of Business. You can also go to bonegasm.com. You'll find everything there. I've got a shop there. That's probably going to be the least cost effective for you. But if you're going to stream, if you're a streamer, Apple Music pays the most to the artist, so I highly recommend that. Spotify pays the least. I'm sure it's easy for you, but if you find us on Spotify, please, if you like the music, buy it. Not just us, any artists. Spotify pays 4 cents per 1,000 stream. So I think Peter Frampton said he had 5.7 million streams and he made $1,700. So that is not a good way to support artists. It's a good way to find music, but not a good way to support artists. So anybody that's interested in the music, buy the music, go to the shows, buy merch. I've got a ton of merch. I've got a shirt that says "Ask me about my sack butt." Yeah, so all of that stuff is a good way, not just us, but any artist you love. So yeah, put your money where your love is.
Absolutely. Jennifer, this has been great. We made it through. Everything's good. So best of luck with everything and enjoy the holidays. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you. Take care.